Life can feel like a never-ending show. You share updates, explain yourself, and stay visible, always trying to keep up. But all this effort to be seen often gets in the way of real, lasting change. What if the constant spotlight is exactly what's holding you back? Disappear, How to Disappear and Transform Yourself, is your invitation to step out of the noise and start fresh. This book isn't about running away from your life or hiding from the world. Instead, it's about pulling back from old habits, online chatter, and the pressure to always perform. It's about giving yourself the quiet space you need to grow and truly become someone new. Inside, you'll find simple, practical ways to take back your privacy and attention. You'll learn how to set boundaries, focus on what matters, and build a stronger, calmer version of yourself. You'll see how to quietly work on your goals, rebuild your confidence, and return to your life with real, visible changes, without making a big announcement or trying to impress anyone. You don't need to disappear completely or be forgotten. You just need a break from the noise and a chance to rebuild in private. If you're ready to stop performing and start transforming, this book will show you how to take the first step, one quiet change at a time. Chapter 1, The Noise Trap. You've turned your life into a performance, and you don't even realize it anymore. Every thought gets filtered through an invisible audience before it becomes action. Every decision gets shaped by how it might look to others. You're not living, you're curating, posting, updating, explaining, broadcasting your plans before you've taken a single real step toward them. And somewhere in all that noise, the person you could actually become is suffocating. This isn't about being too online or needing a digital detox weekend. This is about something far more dangerous. You've replaced transformation with performance. You've swapped depth for visibility. And the worst part, the system rewards you for it. Every like, every comment, every "you got this" from someone who'll forget you by tomorrow, it all feeds the machine that keeps you shallow, scattered, and stuck. You're always on stage. Look at your last week. How many times did you edit what you were about to say or do based on how someone else might react? How many decisions were shaped not by what you actually wanted, but by what would look impressive, sound smart, or avoid judgment? Social media didn't create this problem. It just weaponized it. Group chats, endless notifications, the pressure to always be reachable, always have an opinion, always be seen. These aren't neutral tools. They're designed to keep you performing. And you've internalized the audience so deeply that even when you're alone, you're still playing to the crowd. Your authentic priorities, the things that would actually move your life forward, get buried under what's shareable. You don't ask, "Does this matter to me?" You ask, "Will this get a reaction?" And slowly, without noticing, you become a character in your own life instead of the author. The validation trap. Here's the pattern you know too well. You get excited about something, you announce it publicly, people react, you feel a rush, and then nothing. The announcement gave you the dopamine hit your brain was looking for, so the actual work feels less urgent. You talked about the plan more than you executed it. Again, oversharing isn't just annoying, it's a release valve that kills momentum. When you broadcast every intention, every struggle, every tiny shift in direction, you're not building accountability. You're performing vulnerability. You're using other people's attention as a substitute for your own discipline. Every like is a microdose of validation that trains you to keep coming back. Every reply makes you feel less alone, so you share more to avoid the discomfort of sitting with yourself. The cycle tightens. You need the noise because silence feels like abandonment. But the noise is exactly what's keeping you weak. Fragmented and forgotten. Your attention is shredded. Every notification is a tiny interruption that pulls you out of depth and into reaction mode. You think you're multitasking, but you're really just switching between shallow tasks, never going deep enough to build anything that lasts. You start projects, you get excited, then a message pulls you away. A scroll session eats an hour, a group chat derails your focus, and by the end of the week, you've been busy, but you've built nothing. You're a spectator in your own life, watching time pass while you refresh feeds and wait for something to happen. The brutal truth: constant distraction doesn't just slow you down, it rewires you. You lose the ability to sit with boredom, to think without stimulus, to work without an audience. You become someone who starts everything and finishes nothing, and every unfinished project is another small cut to your self-respect. What happens if you stay here? If you don't change this, the anxiety gets worse. Living inside other people's opinions makes you chronically self-conscious. You'll keep second-guessing every move, wondering how it plays, adjusting your behavior to avoid criticism you haven't even received yet. Your nervous system never rests because you're always on, always performing, always managing your image. Your progress stalls. You'll keep making big public declarations followed by weak private execution, followed by quiet shame. Each cycle erodes a little more self-respect, and 5 years from now, it'll look suspiciously like last year. Same loops, same excuses, same gap between who you say you are and who you actually are. You become easy to manipulate and easy to forget. Predictable people are controllable people. When everyone knows your moves before you make them, when your reactions are scripted, when your life is an open book, you lose leverage. People remember results, not posts. They remember depth, not noise. Stay in this loop, and you'll be widely visible but deeply powerless. The way out exists. This book will show you how to step off the stage, not forever, not as an escape, but as a strategic reset, a deliberate season where you disappear from the noise and rebuild in silence. By the time you finish this book, you'll have a clear, private picture of who you want to become. Not the version people expect. Not the version that gets applause. The version that you would respect if you met them 5 years from now. You'll define specific traits, behaviors, and standards, and you'll separate your vision of success from external validation. You'll design a simple disappearance protocol for the next 30 to 90 days. You'll choose which channels, habits, and environments to step away from. You'll set clear rules for availability and sharing, and you'll decide what to invest your freed-up time and attention into. Skills, deep thinking, the kind of work that doesn't photograph well but changes everything. You'll build your first quiet daily routine, morning and evening structures that support focus and reflection. Small, repeatable actions that move you toward your new identity. And you'll remove at least one habit that exists only to impress others or escape discomfort. What this leads to. Over time, if you stay with this, you'll build a reputation for calm, mystery, and reliability. You'll do what you say, even if you say very little. People will notice your results without ever seeing your rehearsals. You'll become the person others come to for stability, not drama. You'll rebuild your inner compass. You'll practice making decisions based on your standards, not reactions. You'll learn to sit with disapproval or confusion without backing down. And you'll become someone whose opinion of themselves matters more than anyone else's. Your progress will compound in silence. Small, quiet improvements stack over months and years. Your competence, confidence, and options expand. And to others, your eventual breakthrough will look sudden, even though you know it wasn't. The path forward. The steps are simple, but the order matters. First, you choose privacy over exposure. You decide that not everyone needs to know everything you're doing. You accept that privacy is a power move, not a weakness. You identify immediate opportunities to reduce your public footprint. Second, you master silence and build inner authority. You learn to control what you say and when. You build an internal scoreboard for evaluating your actions. You practice making choices based on long-term self-respect, not instant approval. Third, you guard your goals, rebuild your identity, and plan your quiet reentry. You keep your ambitions and progress hidden until they're solid. You draft a clear picture of the new identity you're building, and you plan how you'll re-enter the world as an upgraded version of yourself. These steps are in this order for a reason. You can't rebuild a house while the party is still happening inside it. You have to unplug from the noise first. Remove the constant pressure of being watched before you attempt deep change. Only then can you create enough mental space to even see what you truly want. Then you rebuild from the inside out. You stabilize your sense of self with new standards and beliefs. You align your daily actions with the identity you want. You lock in habits that support focus, resilience, and privacy. Finally, you reappear with boundaries. You come back into the world without slipping into old performance patterns. You interact with others from a place of strength, not neediness. And you let your life speak louder than your explanations. Winners and losers. Losers in this game expect recognition before results. They talk more than they execute. They make excuses about needing to stay visible while staying stuck. They use validation as fuel and collapse when it's missing. Winners put transformation before attention, results before reputation. They use silence, privacy, and obscurity as training grounds. They hold themselves to brutal internal standards, regardless of applause. They understand that the work that matters most happens where no one is watching. Staying noisy and exposed is not neutral. It's a decision to stay weak. Disappearing for a season is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. You have to choose. Less show, more substance. Less performance, more power. The next chapter will show you exactly how to make that choice real, how to choose privacy as your foundation and design a low-noise life that protects your attention and amplifies your growth. But the real question is simpler than that. Will you keep performing, or will you finally start building? Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2. Choose privacy. Privacy isn't what you think it is. You've been taught that privacy is what people with something to hide need, that open, transparent, always available people are trustworthy, that sharing everything is authentic and holding back is suspicious. But here's what nobody told you. Privacy isn't about hiding, it's about control. Every detail you broadcast, every update, every feeling, every plan is a piece of yourself you're handing to the world. And the world doesn't just observe that information. It uses it to form opinions, to make judgments, to pull on your emotions, to distract you, to shape how you see yourself. Think about your attention like a bank account. Every time you share something, every time you check for reactions, every time you explain yourself to someone who doesn't truly need to know, you're making a withdrawal. And most people are running their accounts into the ground, wondering why they're mentally exhausted and emotionally broke. The real cost of being an open book. Your brain has a limited amount of bandwidth. That's not a metaphor, it's neuroscience. You can only hold so many things in active focus, process so many inputs, manage so many social threads before everything starts to blur. When you live as an open book, you're not just sharing information, you're inviting constant input. Every person who knows your business has an opinion about it. Every platform you're active on has an algorithm trying to grab your eyes. Every group chat you're in has someone who needs a response, right now, about something that doesn't matter. Scattered attention creates scattered results. You can't build anything meaningful when your focus is fragmented across a dozen conversations, notifications, and performances. The people who actually accomplish things, who build skills, create value, transform their lives, they're not the ones broadcasting every step. They're the ones who've learned to protect their mental space like it's sacred ground. Privacy isn't about being antisocial. It's about being selective. It's about reclaiming the bandwidth you've been giving away for free. Visibility doesn't equal power. Here's a hard truth. Being widely visible doesn't make you influential. It doesn't make you effective. It doesn't make you powerful. Look around. The loudest people in any room are rarely the most dangerous. The person posting every thought isn't the one making moves that matter. Genuine power operates quietly. It builds in private. It moves strategically. It reveals results, not process. You've confused visibility with value. You think that if people see you, you must be important. But what they're seeing is performance, not substance. They're seeing the trailer, not the movie. And most of the time, the movie never gets made because you spent all your energy on the preview. Your current visibility. How much of it is real leverage and how much is just empty status? How much of your online presence actually opens doors and how much just makes you feel less alone for a few minutes? Strip away the ego and the fear, and what's left? The most powerful move you can make is to stop being so easy to read. Stop being so available. Stop being so predictable. When people can't track your every move, when they don't know what you're working on, when they can't pull your emotional strings with a comment or a like, that's when you become truly dangerous. The freedom you've been missing. Privacy gives you something you've forgotten exists: emotional freedom. When fewer people know your business, you have fewer opinions to manage. You're not constantly adjusting your behavior based on who might be watching. You're not second-guessing every decision because you're worried about how it looks. You're not performing for an invisible audience that doesn't actually care about your success. Privacy protects you from emotional whiplash. One person loves your idea, another thinks it's stupid, someone else is jealous, someone else is indifferent, and you're stuck in the middle, trying to make sense of all these reactions, letting them shape how you feel about something that was yours before you shared it. When you're not being watched, you can experiment. You can fail. You can try something, realize it's not working, and pivot without having to explain yourself to everyone who saw you start. You can restart as many times as you need without the weight of public expectation crushing every attempt. This is what privacy actually gives you: the space to become someone new without having to perform the transformation for an audience. Designing your low-noise life. Choosing privacy means making a decision about who gets access to your inner world. Not everyone, not by default, not just because they asked. Start by identifying your biggest noise sources. Which platforms drain you? Which group chats are just endless loops of nothing? Which people do you update out of habit, not genuine connection? Which environments pull you into performance mode the moment you enter them? You need to create rules that reduce random demands on your time and attention. This isn't about being rude, it's about being intentional. Decide when you're available and when you're not. Decide what information you share and what you keep to yourself. Decide which conversations are worth your energy and which ones are just noise. Make quiet your new baseline. Not an occasional luxury you treat yourself to on vacation. Your default state, the place you operate from, the foundation everything else is built on. This means treating privacy like a firewall. You control what gets in and what gets out. People see your outputs, the work you've done, the results you've achieved, the person you've become. They don't see your open drafts. They don't get live updates on your internal process. They don't have access to every thought and feeling as it happens. The lies you've been told. You've been sold some myths about privacy that need to die. First, the idea that you can stay hyper-visible and still go deep. You can't. Split attention always weakens performance. Depth requires boredom, quiet, and long stretches of uninterrupted time. It requires you to sit with yourself without reaching for your phone. No one is the exception to this rule. Not you, not anyone. Second, the fear that if you go quiet, people will forget you. Real relationships don't depend on constant updates. The people who matter will still be there when you resurface. The ones who forget you, they were never really paying attention anyway. Disappearing from low-quality circles isn't a risk, it's an upgrade. And your future results will do more for your reputation than your current chatter ever could. Third, the belief that privacy means you're hiding something bad. This is the lie that keeps people exposed and weak. Privacy isn't secrecy for manipulation, it's self-respect. It's the understanding that not everything needs to be shared, that some things are yours alone, that you don't owe the world a live feed of your internal experience. Get comfortable with people not knowing everything. Get comfortable with being misunderstood. Get comfortable with the fact that your life is not a public resource. Making the shift. Here's how you actually do this. First, audit who knows what. Make a mental list of the people and platforms that have access to your personal life. Then ask yourself, which of these actually support my growth? Which ones just consume me? Where am I sharing out of genuine connection, and where am I just filling a void? Decide immediately where you'll share less. Not eventually, not when it feels comfortable, now. Next, create levels of access. Think of it like security clearance. Public level, surface information, professional updates, nothing personal. Casual level, acquaintances, colleagues, people you're friendly with but not close to. Inner circle, the handful of people who've earned deep access through trust and time. Private level, just you. Your most important goals, your deepest fears, your real ambitions, these stay here until they're solid enough to survive exposure. Practice keeping your most important things in the private category. This feels unnatural at first. You'll want to share. You'll want validation. You'll want to know what people think. Resist. Let the discomfort teach you something about how dependent you've become on external input. Then introduce what I call social fasting. Set specific windows, hours or days, where you do not broadcast anything. No posts, no updates, no stories. Use this time to build, think, and reflect instead of refreshing feeds. Notice how it feels. Notice what comes up when you can't reach for that easy hit of attention. Extend these periods as you start to feel the benefits. Small moves, big shifts. A few tactical adjustments will accelerate this process. Delay sharing as a default. Wait until experiences are fully processed before you share them, if you share them at all. Use this rule. If it's happening now, it doesn't go online now. You'll be shocked how much this simple delay reduces impulsive oversharing. Most things you wanted to broadcast in the moment don't feel worth sharing once the emotional charge fades. Practice the one-sentence rule in conversations. When someone asks about your life, deliberately say less than you could. Answer personal questions briefly and neutrally instead of narrating your entire story. Let silence or a topic change do the rest. You don't owe anyone a full download of your internal state. Challenge yourself to be the least known person in the room. Listen more than you talk. Observe how much people reveal when you're not competing for attention. Use what you learn to navigate people and opportunities more strategically. Mystery creates respect. Oversharing creates familiarity, and familiarity breeds contempt. What this gets you. At minimum, you'll experience a calmer mind and fewer distractions, fewer emotional spikes from reactions and messages. Your schedule will naturally have more uninterrupted blocks. You'll feel less pressure to explain yourself constantly. Better than that, stronger focus and clearer progress. You'll complete personal projects that previously stalled. Your energy will last longer throughout the day. People will start seeing you as reliable instead of chaotic. Best case, strategic invisibility and accelerated growth. Very few people will know what you're really working on. You'll become difficult to distract and almost impossible to manipulate emotionally. Your improvement curve will bend upward. You'll grow faster with less noise because all that energy you were bleeding into performance is now going into actual building. When it gets hard, people will push back. Expect comments like "you've changed" or "why are you so secretive?" Respond with short, calm lines. "I'm just focused on some things right now." If the pressure continues, reduce access further. Let your actions speak. Watch for over-isolation. Privacy protects growth. It doesn't excuse you from all human connection. Keep a small, supportive circle of real friends. Don't use privacy as a way to escape responsibility or avoid difficult conversations. You'll relapse into oversharing. It's inevitable. Catch the triggers: loneliness, boredom, insecurity, before you grab your phone. Replace the urge with something else: a walk, a few pages in a journal, anything that doesn't broadcast your internal state to people who don't need to know it. Treat each relapse as data. Refine your rules. Don't spiral into shame about it. Privacy is the foundation. It's the first move. It's the decision that makes everything else possible. But choosing privacy is just the beginning. Once you've reclaimed your attention and reduced the noise, you need to do something with that space you've created. The next step isn't about hiding, It's about vanishing on purpose and what happens when you do. Chapter 3: Strategic Disappearance. You can't rebuild a burning house. That's what most people try to do when they want to change. They stay in the same environments, around the same people, doing the same routines, and they wonder why nothing sticks. They think willpower is enough. They think if they just want it badly enough, they can transform while everything around them stays exactly the same. They're wrong. Your environment isn't neutral. The places you go, the people you see, the platforms you check, they're all cues. Triggers. Automatic scripts that your brain runs without asking permission. Walk into your usual coffee shop and your brain knows exactly who you are there. Open that group chat and you slip into the same role you've always played. Sit in that same spot on your couch and your hand reaches for your phone before you even realize it. You're not weak. Your environment is just stronger than your intentions. The cage you can't see. Think about the last time you tried to change something significant. Maybe you wanted to build a new skill, break a bad habit, or shift how you spend your time. How long did it last? A week? 3 days? And what pulled you back? It wasn't a lack of desire. It was the fact that you stayed in the same cage, same triggers, same social expectations, same daily rhythm. You tried to become someone new, while everything around you kept reminding you of who you've always been. Old routines cue old behaviors. That's not philosophy, it's neuroscience. Your brain is a pattern-matching machine. It sees familiar contexts and runs familiar programs. The friend who always wants to complain, the app that always wants your attention, the room where you always waste time. These aren't just background details. They're the invisible architecture of your identity. Trying to change everything while staying in the same environment isn't just hard. It's self-sabotage. You're fighting the current while refusing to get out of the river. Stepping away isn't optional, it's a requirement. Enter the shadow season. What you need is a defined period where you go psychologically off-grid. Not forever, not as an escape, as a deliberate, structured withdrawal to rebuild your life from the ground up. Call it a shadow season. This isn't about running away from your problems. It's about creating friction-free space where transformation becomes possible, where you're not constantly defending your new habits against old triggers, where you can rewire your defaults without an audience watching and commenting on every move. Vague intentions don't work. I'll change soon collapses the moment life gets busy or uncomfortable. You need a clear time frame, a start date and an end date, a window where you commit to obscurity, to quiet, to building in private while the world moves on without you. Think of it like an intense training camp for your mind and habits. Elite performers understand this instinctively. They use off-seasons to rebuild capacity and skills. They step out of the spotlight to get truly better. They don't try to upgrade themselves while performing for an audience. You're done trying to do that too. What disappearing actually means. Strategic disappearance isn't ghosting. It's not running away. It's not emotional avoidance dressed up as self-improvement. It's a deliberate, time-bound withdrawal to rebuild your life structure. You're not hiding from the world. You're stepping back from constant social circulation so you can rewire how you operate. You're becoming less reachable, less reactive, less broadcast-driven. You're reducing how often people can interrupt your focus and emotional state. You're creating a bubble of calm and structure where growth is easier. This means going psychologically off-grid. You're still here. You're still functional. You're still handling your responsibilities, but you're no longer available for every conversation, every event, every group chat spiral. You're no longer performing your life for an audience that doesn't actually care about your success. The key is anchoring your disappearance to specific goals and outcomes. You're not just taking a break. You're disappearing into something. A skill you're building, a project you're completing, a version of yourself you're constructing in silence. Without that anchor, disappearance becomes avoidance. With it, disappearance becomes transformation. The lies that keep you stuck. You've been told some myths that make this harder than it needs to be. First, the idea that you can transform while staying in all the same places. You can't. Familiar cues drag you back to familiar actions every single time. Willpower alone cannot beat strong environmental triggers. Your brain is designed to conserve energy, and the easiest way to do that is to run the programs it already knows. Some spaces must be left behind, at least temporarily, or you'll keep running the same loops. Second, the fear that if you disappear, you'll lose everything. People will forget you. Opportunities will pass you by. Your social status will collapse. This is your ego talking, not reality. The people who matter won't forget you in a few weeks. Real connections survive space and silence, and what you'll gain, clarity, strength, competence, is worth infinitely more than the shallow status you're afraid of losing. Third, the belief that big change has to be public to be real, that if you're not documenting it, sharing it, getting feedback on it, it doesn't count. This is the performance trap in disguise. Transformation doesn't need an audience. In fact, an audience usually kills it. Public declarations are often ego-driven, not results-driven. They give you the dopamine hit of feeling like you've already done something when you've barely started. Private change is the most powerful form of change, always has been. Building your shadow season. Here's how you make this real. First, define your disappearance window. Choose a start date and an end date. Write them down. Make them specific. 30 days is a good minimum. 90 days is better if you can swing it. The length matters less than the commitment. This window is non-negotiable. It's a contract with your future self. Explain minimally to those who truly need to know. Your boss, if it affects your availability. Close family, if they'll notice. But keep it short. I'm focused on a project for a while is enough. Don't over-explain. Don't defend your choice. Let consistency make your decision believable, not long speeches. Next, decide what you're disappearing from. List the platforms, places, and people that drain your focus. Be honest. Some you'll reduce, some you'll cut entirely for the duration. Delete apps before your window starts. Set do not disturb hours that align with deep work blocks. Arrange your physical space to support focus, quiet, uncluttered, distraction light. This is pre-planned friction. You're making it harder to slip back into old patterns by removing the easy access points. Then decide what you're disappearing into. This is the anchor. Identify 1 to 3 core projects or areas of focus, skills you're building, training you're doing, deep inner work you're finally addressing. Create a simple daily schedule that prioritizes these, not a perfect schedule, a realistic one that you can actually follow. Track your effort, not perfection. Measure hours of focused work, not time spent thinking about changing. Note emotional patterns. When you feel the urge to break your own rules, what triggers it? Adjust your plan weekly based on what's actually working, not what you wish was working. Navigating the friction. You'll face resistance, internal and external. Internally, you'll start strong and then fade. That initial wave of motivation is real, but it's temporary. Use weekly check-ins to reset your intention and adjust your schedule. If you need to shorten your window, do it, but don't abandon it. Better to complete a shorter, intense shadow season than to half commit to a longer one. You'll feel guilt about being less available. This is normal. Identify who truly needs your availability and who only wants it. Give essential people a simple, honest heads up. Then remind yourself, you're not abandoning others. You're finally not abandoning yourself. Externally, people will push back. They'll ask why you're being distant, why you're not responding as fast, why you've changed. Keep your script simple. I'm focused on some things right now. That's it. Don't elaborate. Don't justify. Let your actions speak. The real danger is hiding instead of training. There's a difference between retreating to avoid life and disappearing to rebuild. If you catch yourself using your shadow season as an excuse to avoid difficult conversations, responsibilities, or growth, course correct immediately. Keep output metrics front and center. Hours worked, habits completed, decisions made. If you see avoidance creeping in, narrow your focus to one key daily action and do it relentlessly. What you'll walk away with. At minimum, you'll complete your first real focused season, at least one meaningful project or habit streak. You'll feel what deep focus actually tastes like in your own life. You'll prove to yourself that you can live with less noise. Better than that, you'll develop new habits and skills that outlast the window. Your old circles will notice your calm, discipline, and presence when you reemerge. You'll realize you need far less external stimulation than you thought. The constant buzz of notifications and updates, you'll see it for what it is, optional. Best case, you'll emerge as a different person, more selective, more focused, less available. Your strategic disappearance becomes a pattern you can repeat whenever you need to level up. You no longer see obscurity as scary. You see it as where you become dangerous. This is the shift, from trying to change while staying visible to disappearing on purpose and rebuilding in the dark. From performing transformation to actually transforming. But here's the thing about disappearing. It's not just about what you stop doing. It's about what you start doing with all that reclaimed space and energy. And there's one tool, one discipline, that will determine whether your shadow season builds something real or just becomes an extended vacation from responsibility. That tool isn't what you think it is. Chapter 4, Weaponized Silence. You talk too much. Not in every conversation, not always, but more than you need to, more than serves you. You fill silences that don't need filling. You explain things that don't need explaining. You share details that give other people access to parts of your life they haven't earned. And every time you do it, you leak power. Words aren't neutral. They're commitments, identity signals, attention magnets. Every time you broadcast a plan, you're making a promise your brain thinks you've already partially kept. Every time you vent publicly, you're rehearsing your wounds instead of healing them. Every time you overshare, you're handing people the map to your vulnerabilities. The tool you need isn't more communication skills. It's less communication, done better. It's learning to shut up strategically, to let silence do the heavy lifting, to become someone who speaks rarely but lands every word. The cost of running your mouth. Think about the last time you told someone about a goal before you'd made real progress on it. How did it feel to say it out loud? Exciting, right? Validating, like you were already on your way. Now think about what happened next. Did the excitement of sharing it replace some of the urgency to actually do it? Did talking about the plan feel like progress, even though nothing had changed? That's the trap. Broadcasting plans often replaces doing the work. Your brain gets a hit of dopamine from the social validation, and suddenly the gap between where you are and where you want to be feels smaller. The pressure releases, the drive softens, and weeks later, you're still in the same place, wondering why you can't follow through. Oversharing doesn't just leak motivation, it leaks information. Every unnecessary detail you give people makes you easier to predict and control. They know what you're working on, so they know where to apply pressure. They know what you're insecure about, so they know which buttons to push. They know your patterns, so they know exactly how you'll react. You become readable, and readable people are manageable people. Predictable versus powerful. Notice something about the people who actually move in silence. The ones who show up 6 months later with a new skill, a completed project, a transformed life. They don't announce every step. They don't narrate their process. They don't need you to know what they're doing while they're doing it. Loud people are predictable. You know what they're thinking because they tell you. You know what they're planning because they broadcast it. You know their struggles because they perform them. There's no mystery, no intrigue, no reason to pay closer attention. Quiet people are interesting. They make you curious. They make you wonder what they're working on, what they're thinking, what they know that you don't. Mystery creates respect. It creates space for people to project competence and depth onto you, even before you've proven it. Decide right now, would you rather be loud and forgettable or quiet and effective? Silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's a shield and a weapon. Use it to protect your emotional state in difficult conversations. When someone's trying to provoke you, Silence denies them the reaction they're fishing for. Use it to gather information while others overshare. People reveal everything when you give them space to talk. Use it to make your occasional words land with more impact. When you speak rarely, people listen carefully. Training your mouth to obey your brain. The shift starts with awareness. You need to move from automatic talking to intentional talking. Pay attention to the impulse to fill quiet moments. Someone asks you a question, and before you've even thought about your answer, words are already coming out. Someone pauses in conversation, and you rush to fill the gap. You're alone with your thoughts for 30 seconds, and you reach for your phone to text someone, anyone, just to avoid the silence. That impulse is a habit, and like any habit, you can break it. Start by learning to sit in silence without scrambling for words. In conversations, when there's a pause, let it breathe. Count to 3 before you respond. Notice the discomfort. Notice the urge to say something, anything, just to make it go away. And then notice that nothing bad happens when you don't. The silence isn't awkward. Your relationship with silence is awkward. Fix that, and you fix half the problem. Next, identify the details of your life that you spill too easily. Your plans, your fears, your drama. The things you share not because they need to be shared, but because sharing them makes you feel less alone, less uncertain, less exposed. Decide right now what becomes off-limits for casual discussion. Your deepest ambitions, your current struggles, your next moves. These stay private until they're solid. When conversations drift toward personal territory, redirect them toward neutral or shared topics. Not rudely, not obviously, just smoothly. Someone asks what you're working on, and instead of a full download, you give them a sentence. Just some projects. How's your thing going? You've answered without revealing anything, and you've shifted the focus back to them. This is low-signal, high-impact communication. You're being brief, clear, and calm instead of expressive and dramatic. You're using fewer, stronger sentences instead of long explanations. You're letting your actions carry the story that your words used to carry. The myths keeping you loud. You've been sold some lies about communication that make silence feel dangerous. First, the idea that if you don't explain yourself, you'll be misunderstood. So you over-explain, you justify, you defend choices that don't need defending. And here's the truth. Being misunderstood sometimes is a fair price for peace. Over-explaining rarely changes people's opinions anyway. The people who need endless explanations are usually not your growth partners. They're energy drains looking for something to argue about. Second, the belief that talking it out is always healing. Sometimes it is, but often talking it out becomes rehearsing the same pain on loop. You tell the story again. You relive the emotion again. You get temporary relief from the attention, but the wound stays open because you keep picking at it. Some healing requires quiet processing, not group discussion. Use selective sharing with trusted people instead of spilling to everyone who will listen. Third, the assumption that being open means saying everything you feel. It doesn't. Openness is honesty, not total transparency. There's a difference between sharing to connect and sharing to dump. You can be genuine without being fully exposed. You can be real without being raw in front of people who haven't earned that level of access. Reframe this in your mind. Silence isn't withholding. It's discretion. It's self-respect. It's the understanding that not everyone deserves the full story. Practical silence. Here's how you actually do this. Start with what I call the half rule. In conversations, plan to say half of what you initially want to say. You have a story, an explanation, a point to make. Cut it in half. Trim your responses down to the essential point. Notice how much more you hear when you talk less. Notice how people lean in when your words are scarce instead of tuning out when they're abundant. Track your oversharing triggers. There are specific moments when you suddenly start talking too much. Awkwardness. You fill silence to ease tension. Praise. Someone compliments you, and you deflect by oversharing. Anxiety. You're nervous, so you talk to calm yourself down. When you feel that rush to confess or explain, pause. Choose a different response. A short answer. A question that redirects, or just silence. Replace public venting with private processing. When something bothers you, your first instinct is to blast it out. Text a friend, post about it, tell anyone who will listen. Stop. Use journaling to unpack emotions instead. Give yourself a time limit to sit with feelings before sharing them with anyone. Share only when it serves clarity or action, not just release. Keep a few neutral phrases ready for probing questions. I'm working on some things. Still figuring that out. Nothing major, just staying focused. Let these become automatic shields. You're not lying. You're just not giving people ammunition they don't need. Use the 3-second pause before answering personal questions. Silently count to 3. Use that pause to choose how much to reveal. Notice how this small delay gives you control over the conversation. You're no longer reacting, you're responding. Pick one interaction each day where you intentionally choose brevity, a conversation where you'd normally overshare, and you don't. Reflect afterward. How did it feel? What changed? What stayed the same? Increase frequency as your comfort with silence grows. What you gain. At minimum, you'll stop regretting what you said hours after conversations. That emotional hangover, replaying your words, cringing at how much you revealed, wondering how it was received, it fades. You feel less exposed and less vulnerable to gossip. Your mood stops swinging based on how your oversharing was received. Better than that, your words become heavier. People listen more carefully when you speak. Your short answers and calm tone command more respect than your old monologues ever did. You're seen as thoughtful, not reactive, measured, not impulsive. Best case, you develop a calm, enigmatic presence. You become hard to read, hard to provoke, and hard to manipulate. Your silence becomes a clear signal of self-control and inner strength. People steadily recalibrate how they see you. They realize your value through your actions, not your explanations. When it goes wrong, you'll swing too far at first. Your silence will feel cold instead of calm, hostile instead of composed. When that happens, aim for warmth plus brevity, short, kind responses instead of shutdowns. Practice eye contact and relaxed body language to balance fewer words. Silence doesn't mean being a robot. You'll feel fake when you don't share everything. This is normal. You're breaking an old habit, and it feels unnatural. Remind yourself that authenticity is about truth, not volume. Focus on being honest in what you do say, even if it's less. You're not lying by omission, you're just being selective. You'll relapse into oversharing. You'll catch yourself mid-monologue, realizing you've just spilled something you meant to keep private. Don't spiral into shame. Catch it. Ask yourself what triggered it. What could you say next time instead? Treat each slip as a rep in training, not as proof you can't change. Silence is a skill. Like any skill, it gets easier with practice. The shift. You're learning to speak less and say more, to let silence protect your privacy, your energy, and your leverage, to move from talker to observer, from someone who fills every gap to someone who lets gaps exist. This isn't about being mysterious for the sake of it. It's about understanding that words are expensive, and you've been spending them like they're free. Every sentence you don't say is energy you keep. Every detail you don't share is leverage you maintain. Every silence you hold is power you're banking for when it actually matters. But here's the thing about silence and privacy and disappearing. They're all defensive moves. They protect you. They create space. They reduce noise. And that's critical. But protection alone doesn't build anything. Space alone doesn't transform you. What you do inside that protected space, that's where the real work begins. And it starts with a question most people never ask themselves honestly. Whose opinion actually matters? Chapter 5, Inner Authority. Whose opinion of you matters most? Think about it honestly. When you make a decision, whose judgment are you really trying to satisfy? When you evaluate whether your day was good or bad, whose scoreboard are you checking? When you feel proud or ashamed, who's handing out the grades? If the answer is other people, you're not living your life. You're performing it. And the performance never ends because the audience never stops watching, judging, and shifting what they want from you. Here's what nobody tells you. The approval you're chasing is a moving target controlled by people who don't actually care about your long-term success. They care about how you make them feel right now. They care about whether you're entertaining, convenient, or non-threatening, and you're bending your entire existence around that. You need to build something different, something internal, something that doesn't collapse when the crowd goes quiet or turns hostile. You need inner authority, the hidden cost of living for applause. Every time you chase approval, you make a trade. You give up a piece of your autonomy in exchange for a moment of validation, and the math never works in your favor. Chasing approval makes you say yes when you mean no. Someone asks for your time, your energy, your help, and even though you know it's not aligned with what you're building, you say yes anyway. Because saying no might disappoint them, might make them think less of you, might cost you their approval. Your mood rises and crashes based on other people's reactions. Someone praises you and you're flying. Someone criticizes you and you're crushed. Your emotional state is outsourced to people who barely know you, who have their own agendas, who will forget about you by tomorrow. When your self-worth is negotiable, when it depends on external validation, you become easy to steer. People learn exactly which buttons to push. A little praise, and you'll do what they want. A little criticism, and you'll scramble to fix it. You're not making decisions based on what's right for you. You're making decisions based on what keeps the approval flowing. This is reactive living. You're not acting from your values. You're reacting to opinions. Notice how much of your schedule is shaped by fear of judgment. How many choices you make, not because they serve your future, but because they avoid someone's disapproval. You can't build a strong life on borrowed approval. It's rented validation, and the landlord can evict you anytime. What inner authority actually means. Inner authority isn't about ignoring everyone and doing whatever you want. It's not arrogance. It's not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It's about shifting the center of gravity from external to internal. It's about building a scoreboard inside yourself that matters more than any scoreboard outside yourself. Imagine making decisions that align with your future self, even if no one claps, even if people question you, even if you have to sit with their confusion or disapproval. That's freedom. That's power. Inner authority is a shield against guilt, pressure, and manipulation. When you know what you stand for, when you have clear standards you're committed to, other people's attempts to sway you lose their grip. You can hear criticism without crumbling. You can receive praise without getting intoxicated by it. The main prize you're playing for isn't their respect, it's your own. Building your internal scoreboard. Here's the shift. You need to define specific behaviors you'll use to judge yourself. Not vague aspirations, not outcomes you can't fully control. Behaviors, actions, standards. Pick 5. Effort, honesty, consistency, courage, follow-through, whatever resonates with who you want to become. Write a short sentence describing what each one looks like in action. Effort means I show up even when I don't feel like it. Honesty means I don't exaggerate or hide uncomfortable truths. Follow-through means I finish what I start even when it's boring. These become your scoreboard. At the end of each day, you judge yourself by these standards. Not by how many likes you got, not by whether someone complimented you, not by gossip or social feedback, by whether you lived up to your own standards. Treat your daily actions as votes for the person you're becoming. Every time you act according to your standards, that's a vote for the upgraded version of you. Every time you chase approval instead, that's a vote for staying stuck. Over time, you become independent from social approval. You learn to tolerate people not liking or understanding your choices. You separate being kind from being compliant. You can be respectful and still say no. You reduce your emotional dependence on praise and compliments because you have something more stable to stand on. The Future Self Filter. Here's a tool that cuts through the noise. Visualize the future you're building. Not in vague terms. Specifically, what does that person value? How do they spend their time? What do they tolerate, and what do they refuse? Make that person vivid, clear, detailed, then use them as your primary decision filter. Before you make a choice, ask, will future me thank me for this or resent me for it? Not, will this make people happy right now? Not, will this avoid conflict? Will the person you're trying to become respect this decision? Use this filter daily. Someone invites you to something that sounds fun but derails your focus. What does future you want? You're tempted to overshare or chase validation. What does future you need? You're about to say yes out of guilt. What would future you do? This isn't about being cold or selfish. It's about aligning your present actions with your long-term identity. It's about making your future self the judge, not your current audience. The lies you've been sold. You've been told that success will solve this problem, that when you're successful, you'll stop caring what people think. That's a lie. Fame and success often increase pressure, not reduce it. The more visible you become, the more opinions you have to manage. The more you achieve, the more people feel entitled to comment on your choices. Look at how many successful people are still trapped by public opinion, still bending to avoid criticism, still performing for approval. Inner authority is a skill you build now, not a reward you get later. Waiting until you're successful to develop it is like waiting until you're drowning to learn how to swim. Another myth, if you ignore everyone, you're strong. That's not strength, that's childish rebellion. Thoughtful independence means you can listen without obeying every voice. Good feedback is useful. The problem isn't input, the problem is dependence. You can consider someone's perspective without letting it override your own judgment. And here's the big one. Confidence means never doubting myself. Wrong. Doubt is normal, even for the strongest people. Confidence isn't the absence of doubt. It's acting according to your standards despite doubt. It's using doubt as a prompt to refine your thinking, not a reason to freeze or outsource the decision. Making it real. Start by defining your personal standards. Choose 5. Write them down. Commit to judging your day by these standards, not by others' reactions. Then create a daily inner review. Each evening, answer 2 questions. Where did I act from conviction today? Where did I chase approval? Be honest. Note 1 small action tomorrow that would move you toward your standards. Keep this review short, consistent, and brutally honest. Practice controlled disapproval. This is where the rubber meets the road. Say no to a low-stakes request you'd usually accept out of guilt. Sit with the discomfort of someone not being thrilled with you. Notice that the world doesn't end. Notice that your respect for yourself rises. Each time you do this, you're training your nervous system to tolerate disapproval. You're proving to yourself that you can survive and even thrive without constant approval. Tactical adjustments. Before big decisions, ask the future self question. What does my future self want, not my scared self? Use this to override the urge to please or appease in the moment. Make at least 1 decision a week based purely on this filter. Limit your feedback sources. Choose 2 or 3 people whose opinions you genuinely value, people who've earned that access through trust, wisdom, and track record. Ignore most random feedback from casual acquaintances or strangers. Too many voices create static, not clarity. Keep a quiet wins log. Record small wins no one else sees. Hard tasks you finished. Temptations you resisted. Moments you acted from conviction instead of fear. Reread this log when external validation is low. Use it as proof that you're building something real, regardless of applause. What this gets you. At minimum, you'll develop awareness of your approval addiction. You'll begin to catch yourself when you're acting to impress. You'll stop automatically explaining every choice. You'll feel a slight but noticeable shift towards self-respect. Better than that, your decisions will align with your standards. You'll make choices that some people dislike, but you'll still sleep well. You'll feel more stable because your standards don't sway with every opinion. You'll start to see a pattern of consistent, self-directed behavior. Best case, you'll develop unshakable inner authority. Criticism will sting less. Praise will intoxicate you less. You'll become the calm person others look to when everyone else is panicking. Your life path will feel self-chosen. You'll trust yourself at a deep level. When it gets messy, you'll confuse inner authority with arrogance. Notice when you're dismissing feedback out of ego, not clarity. Regularly ask, is there even 10% truth in this criticism? Keep humility. Stay confident, yet always willing to refine. You'll feel lonely without constant approval. Expect an emotional dip when you stop chasing praise. Fill that gap with self-respect rituals and meaningful work. Intentionally build a few deep, honest relationships instead of many shallow ones. You'll freeze when you have to decide alone. Start with smaller decisions you can make quickly and independently. Use time limits. I will decide this within 24 hours. Treat each decision as a rep. The more you decide, the stronger your authority gets. The shift. Inner authority is the difference between living and performing, between self-respect and borrowed validation, between a life that's yours and a life that's shaped by whoever's loudest. You're learning to care more about your own judgment than anyone else's, to stop outsourcing your self-worth, to build a scoreboard inside yourself that doesn't collapse when the crowd goes quiet. But here's the thing about inner authority. It's not just about how you evaluate yourself. It's about what you're building while no one's watching. Because once you stop performing for approval, once you stop leaking your plans and progress to the world, you create space for something most people never experience. The question is, what do you do with that space? Chapter 6, Hidden Ambition. Stop telling people what you're going to do. You think you're building accountability. You think you're manifesting. You think that saying it out loud makes it more real. But here's what's actually happening. You're getting the reward before you've done the work. Your brain doesn't know the difference between announcing a goal and achieving it. Both trigger dopamine. Both feel like progress. And that feeling, that little hit of validation when someone says, "That's amazing," or "You got this," that's the trap. It satisfies the craving your ambition was supposed to fuel. The pressure releases, the urgency fades, and weeks later, you're still at square one, wondering why the excitement didn't translate into execution. The answer is simple. You spent your energy on the performance instead of the build. Hidden ambition isn't about being secretive for the sake of mystery. It's about understanding that your goals are fragile when they're new, and exposure kills fragile things. It's about protecting your projects from the noise, the doubt, and the pressure that comes with being watched while you're still figuring things out. It's about becoming a black box. People see what goes in, people see what comes out, but they don't get access to the process. The announcement trap. Think about the last time you announced a big goal. Maybe you posted about it. Maybe you told your friends. Maybe you made it your whole personality for a week. How did it feel in that moment? Exciting, right? Validating, like you were already on your way. People reacted, they encouraged you, they told you they believed in you, and for a brief window, you felt like you'd already accomplished something. Now think about what happened next. Did that excitement carry you through the hard, boring middle? Did the validation sustain you when the work got difficult and no one was watching? Or did the announcement itself become the highlight, and everything after that felt like a letdown? This is the dopamine trap of public goals. Announcing them gives you a fake feeling of progress. The excitement of telling people replaces the grind of doing. And this pattern, big announcement, weak execution, quiet shame, becomes chronic. You underdeliver so consistently that even you stop believing your own declarations. Public goals also create performance pressure. Once people know what you're working on, you start optimizing for how it looks, not what it builds. You make decisions based on what you can show, not what you need to learn. Constant updates lock you into a narrative. Pivoting becomes harder because you've already told everyone the plan. And scrutiny, even well-meaning scrutiny, can scare you away from the necessary experiments and failures that real progress requires. You end up building for the audience, not for the outcome. What secrecy protects? Hidden ambition conserves power. What people don't know, they can't attack or derail. What you don't broadcast, they can't doubt before it's solid. What you keep private, They can't sabotage with their opinions, their jealousy, or their fear. Your projects need room to grow in peace. Early-stage ideas are fragile. They need iteration, failure, adjustment. They need you to be wrong a dozen times before you're right, and none of that happens well under a spotlight. When you guard your goals like secrets, you protect them from early doubt. You protect them from people who will tell you it's been done before, it won't work, it's too risky, it's not realistic. You protect them from the well-meaning friends who will accidentally plant seeds of hesitation in your mind just by asking too many questions. You also protect them from yourself. When no one's watching, you can pivot without embarrassment. You can quit a bad idea without having to explain why you were wrong. You can restart as many times as you need without the weight of public expectation crushing every attempt. Secrecy gives you flexibility, it gives you energy, it gives you focus, and most importantly, it gives you leverage, because when you finally reveal what you've built, it lands with weight. It's not a promise anymore, it's proof. The black box mindset. Here's the shift. See yourself as a black box. People can see the inputs. You're working, you're focused, you're busy. People can see the outputs, results, skills, completed projects. But your internal process, that's closed. Your routines, your strategies, your experiments, your failures, your breakthroughs, those stay inside the box. This doesn't mean you're dishonest. It means you're selective. You share principles when it serves others. You share lessons when they're solidified. But you don't share your intimate details, your half-formed ideas, or your real-time struggles. Decide right now which ambitions are for your eyes only until they're real. Not until they're perfect, until they're real. Until you've put in enough reps that the goal isn't just a fantasy anymore. It's a project with momentum. Share only with people who are proven to support, not discourage. And even then, share sparingly. Treat your long-term plans like confidential blueprints, because that's what they are. Resist the urge to show every small improvement. You don't need to post about every workout, every chapter written, every skill session completed. Focus on building depth before you reveal breadth. Let others notice changes on their own time. When they do, it'll feel more real to them and to you than any announcement ever could. The lies about visibility. You've been sold some myths that make hiding your ambition feel wrong. First, sharing my goals keeps me accountable. Does it, though? Most accountability partners never truly follow up. They react in the moment, then forget. Real accountability is internal and behavioral. It's systems and tracking, not applause. It's showing up when no one's watching because you committed to yourself, not because you're afraid of looking bad. Second, if I don't share, I'll lose motivation. This is the belief that external hype is your only fuel. It's not. Learn to fall in love with private progress, the quiet satisfaction of doing hard work when no one knows, the internal scoreboard that says you're winning even when the crowd is silent. Use visible results, not premature announcements, as your motivational feedback. Finish something, then feel the pride. Don't borrow the pride in advance. Third, success requires building in public. Some people do this well, most don't. Distinguish between strategic visibility and compulsive oversharing. Notice how many truly great moves are made quietly, then revealed. The best model is hybrid, private build, selective reveal. You do the work in the dark. You share the results in the light. You teach the principles after you've proven them. Building in public works when you're already competent and using visibility as a tool. It fails when you're still figuring things out and using visibility as a crutch. Making your ambition invisible. Here's how you actually do this. Take your current public goals and move them into a private document. If people ask what happened to them, keep it simple. I'm making some tweaks. I'll share when it's ready. Stop giving blow-by-blow updates on long-term projects. The world doesn't need a live feed of your progress. Create a two-tier goal system. Tier 1. Fully private goals with no public trace. These are your deepest ambitions, the ones that matter most, the ones you're not ready to defend or explain. Tier 2. Semi-visible goals with minimal description and no timelines. You might mention you're working on something, but you don't give details. Decide consciously which goal goes where and why. Track progress privately. Use simple metrics, hours worked, milestones reached, just for you. Review your progress weekly and adjust quietly. Share only milestones, not every micro step. And even then, share strategically. Ask yourself, does this serve my growth or does it serve my ego? Use vague language publicly. Replace specifics like I'm launching X on Y date with I'm working on something long-term. Decline to explain details until they're real and stable. Let curiosity build at its own pace. People will respect the mystery more than they'd respect another half-baked announcement. Before you post or announce anything, pause. Ask yourself, is this progress or performance? If the main motive is applause, keep it to yourself. Reserve public sharing for teaching, not flexing. Consider using stealth mode cycles. Choose periods, weeks or months, where you commit to zero progress updates. Focus entirely on build mode during those cycles. At the end, share a compressed summary if it serves you. But don't feel obligated. Sometimes the best move is to stay silent even after you've won. What you gain. At minimum, you'll feel lighter. Fewer people are watching your every move. You waste less time justifying delays or detours. Your attention stays more on doing, less on explaining. Better than that, your follow-through strengthens. You complete more projects because you're not busy performing progress. Your confidence grows from actual results, not imagined futures. People start associating you with delivery, not empty promises. Best case, you develop a reputation for sudden mastery. Others are surprised by the scale and quality of what you reveal. You become known as the person who just appears better every few months. Your hidden ambition compounds into visible, undeniable transformation. You stop being the person who talks about doing things. You become the person who just does them. When it gets hard, you'll feel unseen and undervalued. Expect a temporary drop in external recognition when you go quiet. Re-anchor your sense of worth in your private progress. Use your quiet wins log to remind yourself what you're building. The validation will come later, and it'll be based on substance, not hype. People will pressure you to tell all. They'll ask what you're working on. They'll push for details. Recognize that curiosity doesn't equal entitlement. Use polite but firm responses. Still working on it. I'll share when it's ready. If someone pushes too hard, reevaluate their place in your inner circle. You might hide goals so deep you lose track of them. Avoid overcomplicating your systems. Keep your private goal list simple and visible to you. Review your goals weekly to keep them fresh in your mind. Adjust or delete goals that no longer matter instead of letting them rot in the dark. The shift. Hidden ambition is about protecting your energy, your flexibility, and your focus. It's about understanding that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's about becoming someone who builds in private and reveals in public, not the other way around. Your life stops being a trailer for a movie you never finish. It becomes a closed workshop where real work happens. And when you finally open the doors, what people see isn't a promise. It's a product. But here's the thing about building in silence. The work changes you. The process rewrites who you are. And if you're not intentional about that transformation, you'll finish the project, but still be the same person who started it. The question is, who are you becoming while no one's watching? Chapter 7, Identity Rebuild. You're not who you think you are. The version of yourself you carry around in your head, the story you tell about who you are, what you're capable of, what you always do or never do, that's not truth. That's just a story you've been repeating so long, it feels like truth. And here's the problem. You act according to that story, every single time. If you see yourself as the unreliable one, you'll find ways to be unreliable, even when you're trying not to be. If you identify as the procrastinator, you'll procrastinate, even on things you care about. If your internal label is the person who starts things but never finishes, guess what happens to every project you touch? Behavior follows identity, always. Your self-image sets the ceiling on your actions. You can force yourself to act differently for a while, but eventually you'll snap back to whatever feels consistent with who you believe you are. That's why most change doesn't stick. You're trying to install new habits on top of an old identity, and the old identity always wins. The invisible cage of old roles. Think about the role you play in your social circles: the funny one, the responsible one, the mess, the peacemaker, the cynic, the optimist. These roles weren't chosen consciously, they evolved. You acted a certain way once, people reacted, and you kept doing it because it worked. Over time, the role became your identity. And now, even when you want to change, the role pulls you back. Notice how you sabotage yourself to stay consistent with old labels. You're trying to be disciplined, but you're not a morning person. You're trying to be focused, but you've always been scattered. You're trying to follow through, but you're just not that kind of person. These aren't facts, they're stories, and you're the one telling them. Here's the harder truth. Other people are invested in keeping you in your old role, not maliciously, just unconsciously. They know how to interact with the old you. The old you is predictable, safe, non-threatening. When you start to change, it disrupts their comfort. So they'll make jokes. They'll remind you of past failures. They'll subtly push you back into the box they've built for you. Upgrading means disappointing people who are invested in the old you. Accept that now, or stay stuck forever. Why identity is the leverage point. Here's what most people miss. When you believe you are someone new, aligned behaviors feel natural. You're not forcing yourself to act differently. You're just being who you are. Habits stop being chores you have to white-knuckle through. They become expressions of your identity. I'm the kind of person who trains. I'm the kind of person who keeps their word. I'm the kind of person who doesn't need constant validation. Transformation stops being a fight and starts being a fit. This is why you can't skip the identity work. You can learn all the tactics in the world, but if you still see yourself as weak, scattered, or dependent, those tactics won't hold. The moment pressure hits, you'll revert, because reverting feels like coming home. Identity rebuild makes change automatic. It's the difference between trying to be disciplined and being a disciplined person, between forcing yourself to focus and being someone who values deep work, between performing confidence and actually trusting yourself. The shift happens when your internal story changes, and that story changes through evidence, not intention. Shedding the old skin. You have to name what you're letting go of, not vaguely, specifically. Write down the current version of you in honest, unfiltered language. The patterns you're tired of repeating, the labels you've worn for too long, the behaviors that feel automatic even though they don't serve you anymore. This isn't about shame, it's about clarity. You can't shed what you won't acknowledge. List the roles you've been playing, the identities you've been clinging to. Then ask yourself, how did this story once protect me? Because it did. At some point, being the funny one kept you safe. Being the reliable one earned you approval. Being the mess lowered expectations so you couldn't disappoint. But what protected you then limits you now. Grieve the comfort of the old identity without clinging to it. There's a strange safety in knowing who you are, even if who you are isn't who you want to be. Letting that go feels like free falling. But that discomfort is the price of transformation. Create space in your self-concept for something better. You're not erasing yourself. You're making room for an upgrade. Defining the new you. Now comes the part most people skip. Defining clear targets for who you want to become. Not what you want to achieve, who you want to be. Character, not accomplishments. Describe your future self living an ordinary day. How do they wake up? How do they handle frustration? How do they respond to criticism? How do they spend their time when no one's watching? What do they tolerate and what do they refuse? Make this vivid, specific, detailed. This isn't a vision board, this is a blueprint. Choose 3 core traits that define this version of you. Disciplined, calm, dangerous in your craft. Whatever resonates. Then map behaviors that match each trait in daily life. If you're disciplined, what does that look like at 7 in the morning? If you're calm, how do you handle conflict? If you're dangerous in your craft, What does your training schedule look like? Choose one phrase that captures this new identity, something short, something you can repeat to yourself when the old story tries to pull you back. Quietly relentless, built different, always finishing. Whatever lands for you. This phrase becomes your anchor. When you're tempted to slip into old patterns, you ask, does this match who I'm becoming? Voting for the new story. Identity doesn't change because you declare it. It changes because you prove it to yourself, one action at a time. Pick 3 daily behaviors that match your new story. Small, repeatable, non-negotiable. These are your votes. Every time you complete one, you're casting a vote for the person you're becoming. Every time you skip one, you're voting for the old you. Complete these behaviors even when you don't feel like that person yet. Especially when you don't feel like that person yet. Because that's how the feeling catches up. You act first. The identity follows. Track your streaks, not for social media, for you. This is concrete evidence that your identity is changing. Your brain needs proof. Give it proof. Over time, the new behaviors stop feeling forced. They start feeling like you. And one day you'll realize you're not pretending anymore. You've become the person you were trying to be. Tactical identity shifts. Create an alter ego handle, a name or phrase representing your upgraded self. In tough moments, ask, what would this version of me do next? Use it as a decision filter. Gradually, the gap between you and the alter ego closes. You merge. Use environmental cues. Place objects around you that remind you of your new self. Tools, books, symbols. Adjust your workspace to match someone serious and focused. Remove or hide items tied strongly to your old habits and roles. Your environment should reinforce the new identity, not the old one. Rewrite your self-talk. Catch phrases like, I always mess this up, or I'm just lazy. Replace them with statements about your direction. I'm becoming the person who follows through. I'm learning to handle this better. Repeat these phrases especially when you stumble. Your internal dialogue shapes your identity more than you realize. What you'll gain. At minimum, you'll create distance from the old you. You'll stop proudly repeating negative labels about yourself. You'll feel a gap between who you've been and who you're becoming. You'll notice more self-respect in your internal dialogue. Better than that, your daily life will start to match your future self. Your calendar will look like it belongs to a serious person. You'll consistently behave more like your future self than your past self. Others will remark on how different your habits and presence feel. Best case, you'll achieve a fully upgraded identity. You'll naturally choose actions aligned with your new story. Old triggers and roles will lose their grip. You won't relate to them anymore. You'll feel at home inside the person you once only imagined. This is the shift from trying to be someone to being someone. When the old you fights back, you'll feel like an imposter. Your brain will protest, this isn't you. Recognize this as proof you're leaving your old identity, not as a red flag. The discomfort means it's working. Continue small, aligned actions until they feel normal. You'll face pushback from old circles. Notice who mocks or resists your improvement. These are the people who need you to stay the same so they don't have to change. Reduce time with those who only respect the old you. Seek out people whose default is growth, not stagnation. You'll relapse into old behaviors. Expect occasional slips. Don't dramatize them. Ask, what pulled me back? Environment, emotion, or person? Adjust your routines and boundaries so the same trap is harder next time. Every relapse is data. Use it. The transformation. Identity rebuild is the difference between surface change and deep change. Between trying harder and becoming different. Between forcing yourself to act like someone you're not and actually being someone new. You're shedding the old version, defining the new version, and voting for that new version every single day through small, aligned actions. Over time, the story you tell yourself changes, and when that story changes, everything else follows. But here's the thing about becoming someone new in silence. Eventually, you have to come back. You have to re-enter the world. You have to interact with the people who knew the old you. And if you're not careful, they'll pull you right back into the role you just escaped. The question is, how do you return without regressing? Chapter 8, Quiet Reentry. Coming back is harder than leaving. You've done the work. You disappeared. You rebuilt. You rewired your habits, your identity, your standards. In the silence, away from the noise, you became someone different, someone stronger, someone more focused, someone who doesn't need constant validation to feel real. But now you have to go back to the people who knew the old you, back to the environments that shaped the old you, back to the social circles, the work settings, the family dynamics that haven't changed just because you have. And here's the brutal truth. This is where most transformations leak. This is where people slip back into old patterns without even realizing it. Because the pull of familiar environments is stronger than you think. The pressure to perform your old role is subtle but relentless. And if you're not prepared, you'll find yourself acting like the person you just spent months trying to leave behind. Reentry isn't a victory lap. It's a stress test. And how you handle it determines whether your transformation was real or just a temporary retreat. The test you can't skip. Private improvements mean nothing if they collapse the moment you re-engage with real life. You can be disciplined in isolation. You can be focused when no one's watching. You can be calm when there's no one around to trigger you. But can you maintain that when you're back in the mix? That's the question. Reentry answers. Old environments will test you. Expect it. Familiar people will pull you back into familiar roles, not because they're malicious, but because that's the version of you they know how to interact with. Old spaces will trigger old behaviors almost automatically. The room where you used to waste time. The friend group where you used to play a certain character. The family dynamic where you used to shrink or overcompensate. These aren't abstract challenges. They're specific, predictable traps, and if you walk into them unprepared, you'll regress before you even notice it's happening. Prepare for this instead of being surprised by it. Know that the pull will be there. Know that people will unconsciously try to slot you back into the box they've built for you. Know that your own muscle memory will try to take over. The only way to survive reentry is to decide in advance how you're going to show up. Not who you're going to explain yourself to, not how you're going to justify your changes, how you're going to behave regardless of the pressure. Returning without the performance. Here's what you don't do. Make a grand announcement. Don't give a speech about how you've changed. Don't overshare your journey. Don't apologize for being different. Don't explain every shift in your behavior like you owe people a dissertation on your personal growth. Just show up different. Re-engage with work, friends, and family without narrating the transformation. Let your new behavior be the message. Be on time when you used to be late. Be calm when you used to be reactive. Be focused when you used to be scattered. Speak less when you used to dominate conversations. Say no when you used to say yes out of guilt. Watch your instinct to apologize or explain. That instinct is the old you trying to smooth things over, trying to make everyone comfortable, trying to avoid the tension that comes with change. Choose not to follow it. When someone asks why you're different, give a short answer. I've been working on some things. Just trying to be more intentional. That's it. Don't elaborate unless they've earned the full story, and most people haven't. Quiet reentry builds real respect. You earn credibility when you act different consistently, not when you talk about acting different. People adjust to the new you based on what you tolerate and how you show up. If you hold your boundaries calmly and repeatedly, they'll recalibrate. If you cave the first time there's pushback, they'll know your change was performative. Quiet reentry also makes your change feel real to you. When you don't make a big deal out of it, when you just live it, it stops being a project and starts being who you are. Controlled presence. You're not going back to being always on. That version of you is dead. The new version operates differently. Decide when, where, and with whom you'll spend time, not reactively, intentionally. You don't owe everyone access just because they ask for it. You don't have to attend every event, accept every invitation, or be available for every conversation. Be less available by default. More intentional when you do show up. Shift from always on to selectively present. This means keeping clear boundaries around your time, energy, and privacy. Protect your core routines even as social demands return. The morning routine that rebuilt you, non-negotiable. The evening reflection that keeps you aligned, non-negotiable. The deep work blocks that make you productive, non-negotiable. Adjust your schedule, not your standards, when life gets busy. People will try to pull you into their chaos. They'll want you to drop everything for their emergencies, their drama, their last-minute plans. Let them be disappointed. Hold your standards even when it's inconvenient. This is what it means to reappear with edges. You're not the soft, accommodating, always available person you used to be. You have limits now. You have priorities now. And you're not apologizing for them. Allow others to feel your new edges without smoothing them down. Some people won't like it. Some will push back. Some will call you selfish or distant or changed. Let them. Their discomfort is not your emergency. The lies about reentry. You've been told that you have to explain your whole transformation, that people deserve to understand why you're different, that if you don't give them the full story, you're being rude or secretive. That's a lie. Most people don't need or deserve your full story. Over-explaining invites debate instead of respect. It turns your transformation into a topic for discussion, something they can question or critique. A short answer plus consistent actions is enough. Let your behavior do the talking. Another myth: if you're different, you'll be rejected. Some relationships were built on your weaknesses, on your availability, on your willingness to play a certain role. When you stop playing that role, those relationships will strain or break. That's not rejection, that's natural selection. The right people will adapt or lean in when you grow. The wrong people will resist or fade. Both outcomes are wins. Being accepted for a weaker version of you isn't a win. It's a trap. It's staying small so others stay comfortable. Reject that trade. And here's the big one. Real change must be loud and dramatic. Wrong. Quiet, steady change feels more real and less theatrical. It doesn't need a reveal. It doesn't need a speech. It just needs repetition. Time, not theatrics, proves who you've become. The reentry protocol. Start by deciding where you'll reenter and where you won't. List the environments you left during your disappearance, your old hangout spots, your old social circles, your old routines. Now ask, which of these still fit your new identity? Which ones support who you're becoming? Which ones will drag you back? Choose consciously. Accept that some doors must stay closed, not temporarily, permanently. Some environments are incompatible with the person you're building. Walking back into them is choosing regression. When you do re-enter, show up with new behaviors, not new speeches. Be on time, prepared, and calm more often than before. Speak less, observe more, and let others adjust to the new you. Say no more confidently where you used to overcommit. Don't announce these changes, just do them. Maintain your structures. The routines that rebuilt you in silence need to survive contact with the world. Protect your non-negotiable time blocks for training, work, and reflection. When someone tries to schedule over them, decline. When life gets chaotic, tighten your grip on your routines. Don't loosen it. Tactical adjustments. Expect tests and rehearse responses. Think about specific situations where you might be pulled back. The friend who always wants to gossip. The family member who always guilt trips you. The colleague who always asks for last-minute favors. Script short, calm responses in advance. I can't make it. I'm focused on other things right now. That doesn't work for me. Use repetition to make these responses natural. Run post-event check-ins. After social events, ask yourself, did I stay aligned with my new identity? Note where you slipped and where you held strong. Adjust your boundaries or tactics based on these reflections. If a certain person or environment consistently pulls you back, reduce exposure or cut it entirely. Use fewer words, more action. When tempted to justify a change, take a breath and give a shorter answer. Let your new patterns repeat over weeks and months. Trust that consistency will say what words can't. People will get the message not from what you tell them, but from what you repeatedly do. What you'll gain. At minimum, others will notice you're different. People will comment that you seem calmer, more serious, or more focused. You'll feel less dragged into old drama. You'll keep most of your new routines intact despite the social pressure. Better than that, your relationships and roles will upgrade. Low-quality connections will fade or adapt without you forcing anything. Your work or projects will benefit from your new presence and discipline. You'll attract opportunities that fit the upgraded you because people can sense when someone's operating at a different level. Best case, you'll occupy a new position in your world. You'll be seen as grounded, reliable, and slightly mysterious. You'll control your availability and emotional energy instead of others controlling it. Your internal identity and external reputation will finally match. What you know about yourself and what others see will align. When it gets messy, you'll feel pressured to perform the old you. Notice when you reflexively slip into old jokes, habits, or behaviors. Pause, reset. Choose a response aligned with your new identity. If certain people always drag you back, limit your exposure to them. You don't owe anyone access to the version of you that no longer exists. You'll over-explain your change. Catch yourself mid-speech when you start justifying every shift. Replace explanations with simple statements of fact. I don't do that anymore. Let silence carry the rest. The less you explain, the more seriously people take you. You'll collapse under old stimuli. If you notice repeated backsliding in a specific environment, reassess whether you should be there. Tighten your routines leading into and out of that environment. Remember, you're allowed to leave rooms that cost you your growth. Walking away isn't weakness, it's self-preservation. The return. Quiet reentry is how you prove your transformation was real. It's how you integrate the person you became in silence with the life you're living in public. It's how you hold your new identity under pressure, in familiar environments, around people who expect the old you. You don't announce, you don't perform, you just show up different, hold your boundaries, and let time do the rest. But here's what happens when you successfully re-enter. You realize the transformation wasn't just about changing yourself, it was about changing your entire life. And now that you've done it once, you can do it again, and again, and again. The question is, what does that life actually look like when all the pieces come together? Chapter 9, The New Life. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of a loop you'll run for the rest of your life. Everything you've learned in this book, the disappearance, the silence, the privacy, the identity rebuild, the quiet reentry, it's not a one-time fix. It's a pattern, a cycle you can repeat whenever you need to level up, whenever you feel yourself slipping back into noise, whenever the world starts to feel too loud and your life starts to feel too shallow. You now have a framework that most people will never understand. While they're performing their lives for an audience that doesn't care, you'll be building in silence. While they're chasing validation and burning out on exposure, you'll be compounding quiet wins that no one sees until they're undeniable. The new life isn't about arriving at some perfect destination. It's about understanding that transformation is a loop, not a line. Disappear, transform, re-enter, repeat, each time at a higher level, each time with less effort required to maintain your standards. This is what it means to live as a private project. Your life becomes an ongoing, confidential build, not a public spectacle, not a performance, a workshop where real work happens and the world only sees the finished product. The loop that changes everything. Strategic disappearance breaks old loops and restores focus. You step out of constant social circulation, away from the noise, away from the pressure to perform. You create friction-free space where transformation becomes possible. Silent training and identity rebuild happen in the dark. You guard your goals, you master your speech, you build inner authority, you rewrite the story you tell yourself about who you are. You vote for that new identity every single day through small, aligned actions. Quiet re-entry locks in the changes. You come back different. You hold your boundaries. You maintain your structures. You let your behavior speak louder than any announcement ever could. And then, when you need to grow again, you run the loop again. Each cycle makes you stronger. Each cycle makes the next one easier. Because you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from a higher baseline. Privacy is step one. It's the foundation. Without it, everything leaks. Every effort gets diluted by oversharing, distraction, and performance. Privacy reclaims your attention and protects your energy. Weaponized silence protects your leverage. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. When you stop explaining yourself, people take you more seriously. When you stop filling every gap with noise, you create space for depth. Inner authority and hidden ambition are your long-term engines. Inner authority means you care more about your own judgment than anyone else's. Hidden ambition means you build in private and reveal strategically. Together, they make you unstoppable. Obscurity is not a sentence. It's your training ground. It's where you become dangerous. And your future sudden success, the moment when people finally notice you've changed, is really just this quiet work compounding over time. What you've gained. You now have control over your attention and emotions. You choose what gets your eyes, ears, and emotional bandwidth. You stop letting random people hijack your mood. You use quiet as a strategic tool, not a punishment. Your self-respect and confidence are no longer borrowed from external validation. You respect yourself because you do hard things without an audience. Your confidence is based on evidence. Hours worked, habits completed, promises kept, not hype. You trust your own judgment more than external noise. You have greater agency over your life direction. You feel less pushed by trends and more pulled by your own standards. You set long-term directions and stay with them. You move from drifting to deliberately steering. Your relationships improve because you stop performing. You stop using people as an audience and start relating to them as humans. You listen more deeply because you're not always thinking about your image. Conversations become calmer, more grounded, and more honest. You build stronger boundaries and healthier connections. You no longer say yes to avoid discomfort. You let people know how to treat you by what you accept and decline. You attract those who respect your privacy and growth. Your social ecosystem cleans itself. Low-effort, high-drama connections fade away naturally. Your inner circle becomes smaller, but far more solid. You feel less drained and more supported by the people around you. What you can now achieve. You can focus on deep, long-term projects, multi-month or multi-year goals that used to derail after a few weeks. You can stay consistent without needing public encouragement at every step. You can see projects through to completion because you're building for you, not for applause. You can make bold changes in direction. Pivot careers, environments, or priorities without over-explaining. Make decisions that confuse others but make sense for your future. Walk away from roles that no longer fit without guilt or hesitation. You can sustain personal evolution. You no longer try a new you for a week and then revert. You evolve over years. You continuously update your identity to match your growth. You build a life that feels aligned, not random. And here's the beautiful part. Continuing to practice these concepts makes everything easier over time. The compounding effect. Actions you forced at first become automatic later. The morning routine that felt like a battle becomes your default. The boundaries that felt uncomfortable become non-negotiable. The silence that felt awkward becomes your natural state. Your default settings shift toward discipline, privacy, and focus. It takes less willpower to stay on track because this is just who you are now. You're not fighting yourself anymore. You're just being yourself. And yourself is someone who values depth over noise. Small, consistent improvements stack into big advantages. You gain momentum. One win creates conditions for the next. A completed project builds confidence for a bigger one. A held boundary makes the next boundary easier. A quiet season of growth makes the next one feel natural. Over time, the gap between you and your old life becomes massive. Not because of one dramatic change, but because of thousands of small, quiet decisions that compounded. You look back a year, 2 years, 5 years, and you barely recognize the person you used to be. The outside world adjusts. People stop fighting your boundaries because they realize you're serious. Your environments become better curated for growth because you've systematically removed what drains you and kept what serves you. You spend less time resisting and more time building. Your first move. Close this book and make one non-negotiable decision. Right now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. Choose one thing, a channel to cut, a boundary to set, or a goal to make fully private. Write it down. Set a clear start time. Today, not someday. Honor this decision as if it were a contract with your future self, because it is. Commit to a short disappearance window, even 7 days. Pick a realistic time frame to practice privacy, silence, and focus. Define simple rules for that window, what you'll step away from, what you'll step into. Treat it as your first test of this new life. Write one paragraph about who you're becoming. Describe your next level self plainly and clearly, not vague aspirations, specific behaviors, clear standards. Put that paragraph somewhere you'll see daily. Use it as a compass when you feel yourself slipping. That's it. That's your starting point. One decision, one window, one paragraph. Everything else builds from there. The cost of waiting. Every day you stay overexposed and under-transformed steals from your future. Every day you keep performing instead of building is a day you can't get back. Every day you let noise dictate your attention is a day you lose to someone else's agenda. Picture yourself 1 year from now. 2 versions of you exist in that future. One stayed in the noise, kept oversharing, kept chasing validation, kept starting and stopping. That version is stuck in the same loops, wondering why nothing ever changes. The other version disappeared, rebuilt, reentered. That version is quietly unrecognizable, calmer, sharper, more focused, more dangerous in their craft, more respected, more aligned. Which version do you want to be? Not choosing is still a choice. It's usually the worst one, because staying where you are isn't neutral. It's regression. The world keeps moving, your potential keeps aging, your window keeps closing. But here's the truth that should light a fire in you. You don't need to fix everything today. You just need to start the loop. One private commitment can start a chain reaction of wins. One season of silence can rewrite your trajectory. One quiet decision can change everything. The person you want to become is built in silence, not in spectacle. Built in obscurity, not in the spotlight. Built through repeated, private actions that no one applauds until they're undeniable. Step into it. You are allowed to outgrow your past. You are allowed to outpace your environment. You are allowed to become someone your old life wouldn't recognize. You don't need permission. You don't need approval. You don't need anyone to understand. You just need to choose. Choose to disappear from the noise. Choose to rebuild in silence. Choose to reappear as someone who doesn't need validation because they have something better. Self-respect earned through quiet, relentless work. This is your moment, not someday, not when conditions are perfect, not when you feel ready. Now. Take the first step today, quietly, seriously, with the calm confidence of someone who is done performing and ready to become. Disappear, transform, reenter, repeat. The new life is waiting, but it only exists on the other side of the decision you make right now. Go.